Hello and welcome to this complete Fiora guide. This is the only Fiora guide you will ever need, especially for season 12, because the season is starting in 2 days. So make sure to have Fiora on your side for the next season, because she's a very good top laner. She's my favorite champion. I main her for the last 2 seasons now, and I have had so much fun with her. I have improved so much on her, and I want to share with you what I learned. And yeah, I will cover everything. I will cover abilities, I will cover runes, I will cover items, combos, matchups, early game, late game, everything you need to know in order to carry your games, and you won't need any more guide, any more knowledge. It's all packed into the video, so after you watch the whole thing, you will be ready to go into your ranked games and carry those games. But I still would recommend you maybe trying it out in the practice tool or in some normal games, of course, before you bring this to your ranked games. But if you're already familiar with Fiora, then it's completely fine. Yeah, let's start. My name is Mario, and I am a Fiora one-trick. For the last 2 seasons, I almost have 1 million mastery points on her. I had several coachings on her. I had challenger people, I had rank 1 Fioras coaching me, so I have a lot of knowledge I can give you guys. And let's start with the abilities. Her passive spawns a vital every 15 seconds, or immediately after you procced one, and it will spawn in this pattern: bottom or left, and then top or right. So if you hit the bottom or left one, the next one will spawn top or right. If you hit it, then it will immediately respawn the next vital after, I think, 2 seconds or something. And if you don't hit it, then it will change after 15 seconds. Note that if you go out of range, so if you go out of vision, it will reset. So you can reset it, but also your enemy can reset it, so you can play with that a little bit. One crazy thing: if you are in a bush, so let's say this vital is here and I go into the brush, and the next vital doesn't spawn because he has no vision of me. The vital which is already there, of course it stays, but the next vital will not be spawning. But if the next vital is spawning, then you know that the enemy has vision of you. So this is a very important note. You can play with that. And yeah, let's move on to the Q. You dash and make damage. It applies on hit effects, and you can do it either a short distance or long distance. And of course, if you're further away from your enemy, you want it to be long distance. But if you want to proc it fast, then you just click between her legs and it will immediately proc the vital, or yeah, if there is a vital. If not, then it will deal damage, of course. Your W is it deals a magic damage, and you will not be able, so you will not be, you will parry all incoming damage for 0.75 seconds, so you will not be damaged within this duration. And afterwards you stab, you deal the damage, and you slow the enemy's movement speed and the enemy's attack speed. But if you parried, so if you got hard crowd control debuff while you used it, so if, let's say, I get stunned, let's say with Renekton, so Renekton uses his W and he wants to hit me, but I use my W before it hits, then it will stun him. So yeah, if you parry an immobilizing effect, the stab stuns the target for 2 whole seconds. So this is very big. So in every matchup where your enemy has a stun, you can predict. You always want to do it. Yeah, but you don't actually want to predict it. You want to see it, and you want to see it and parry it. So for example, set E is very hard because you don't see animation. Let's say yeah, Nautilus auto attack is very easy because you just see the animation and you just press W. And yeah, it also deals damage to minions. You want to use it if you want to fast clear a minion wave. And yeah, it also deals damage. So if you hit level 2, you want to put a point into your W at level 2. Always start with Q, then W, and then E. and you already want to jump with Q and W onto your enemy already when you hit level 2, because it deals 110 magic damage, which is a lot. That's more than an auto hit. And let's just do this. What else you can do is QW. So you Q and W at the same time. For example, Veigar Cage, you can QW through it and stun a target. Caitlyn traps, Jinx traps, those are stuns for you. So if there is a Caitlyn trap, so let's say there is a Caitlyn trap, you can QW through it and stun a target. Morgana stun, if you QW through it, you will stun her. You can also QW through it and stun another person. So this is your big mechanic, and this is why Fiora is such a good champion if you have experience on her, because this is not hard, this is not easy to execute, and you can always improve on that. Your E is an auto attack reset, so you want to immediately do it after the auto attack, so you have the most DPS possible, and it also gives you attack range, so your attack range is enhanced for the next 2 attacks. And if you chase down a target, the first one will slow. You want to use your E because you can use it for range, also gap closer, because it has a bigger bigger range than your auto attack. And then your target will be slowed, and you will be able to proc the second one, the second E, which will 100% crit. And then, yeah, you can continue hitting them. Your vitals also give you movement speed, so you're really a duelist. You want to fight the target really hard. And yeah, so you start with Q, then put a point in W, put a point in E, then you max your Q first and your E second, and every time you can, you put a point in your R, so level 6, 11 and 16. And yeah, what your R does is it will spawn all 4 vitals, and you gain attack speed while you are in the circle. So if you're chasing down a target, you can use your R, and as long as you're in the circle, you will have enhanced move speed. You see, now I have 342, now I have 442. So you really can chase down targets. And yeah, you should practice it to proc all 4 vitals in the practice tool, because it's hard in games, because you most likely are running around the target and the target is running away or towards you, so it's hard. You also can use your W to break vital, something like this. You can, yeah. I will go into that when we talk about the combos, and actually I have a video on that, so we will talk about it later. But yeah, that's it for the abilities. That's everything you need to know for now. Next thing are the runes. The runes, give me a second. The rune is on fire. So you have precision or resolve. Those are your 2 main keys, and you want to combine it with resolve or precision. So let's start with the precision tree. You most likely want to go Conqueror. It's your main rune, it's your main thing. It's the best rune on Fiora, so Conqueror is the standard rune. Presence of Mind or Triumph, it's up to you, but I like Presence of Mind because you have a lot of mana struggling in the early. If you build, for example, an early tier, you can go Triumph because you won't need the Presence of Mind, but I like to go Presence of Mind for all my games. Here, I like the Legend Bloodline. You also can go Tenacity sometimes into hard CC. I go, so let's say the top laner is Renekton and their jungler is, let's say, something with a stun, so, or Nocturne, because he has his Fear, or Fiddlesticks. Then I want to go for Tenacity because there will be a lot of CC. I can't parry because you can't always parry everything. Some things you have to predict and sometimes you won't do it, so then you want to take Tenacity. Also, you can go Electricity, it's good. I go like this. If the enemy has hard CC, I go Tenacity. Most likely I go Bloodline, but only if I go Stripebreaker. If I go Gore Drinker, I go Alacrity, because the Gore Drinker already will give me lifesteal, and afterwards I want to buy Ravenous Hydra, so I won't need the extra Bloodline. But if I start with Stripebreaker, I won't have lifesteal for my first 2 items, because Ravenous Hydra is my 3rd item, and then I want the lifesteal I get from Legend Bloodline. Also, Coup de Grace is basic, but only with Stripebreaker. Another item option is Divine Cellarer, but we will talk about that later. But the rule you can take for yourself is Coup de Grace if you go Stripebreaker, and Last Stand if you go Goredrinker, because it fits with the passive of Goredrinker, or with the active. So yeah, so let's say this if you go Stripebreaker, and this if you go Goredrinker, right? Okay, then, but I go most likely Stripebreaker, so this is my standard rune page. Then always Revitalize. Revitalize is the best rune you can take on in the resolve tree for Fiora, and Second Wind or Bone Plating, depending on if your enemy is ranged, you want to go Second Wind, because you can just proc your Bone Plating with auto attack and it doesn't bring you much, it doesn't help you anything. Bone Plating into melee, Second Wind into ranged. It's that easy. Second Wind you want to combine with Doran Shield, because then you heal back a lot of damage. And again, if the enemy has hard CC, you want to go Unflinching. This is defensive, but offensive would be Revitalize. I go Revitalize most likely, and Bone Plating, because most matchups are melee. Then Attack Speed, Adaptive Force, Armor. This is pretty basic. If you go Alacrity here, you can take a second point in Adaptive Force here. Of course, if you go against AP, you just take Magic Resistance. And yeah, yeah, that's it. That's it for the first page. The second page is Grasp. You want to take Grasp into matchups where you either don't need your Conqueror, or where you won't really be able to stack your Conqueror. But before we go into that, let's talk about the main key here, because you also can go Fleet Footwork into hard ranged matchups, but it got nerfed, so press the attack is also a thing. What I do is, if it's really hard, so if it's like Chase or Wayne, Ash, something like this, which really can poke me a lot, I take Fleet. But something like Kale or Teemo sometimes, which is, I can survive it already with the Second Wind and the D-Shield, so I don't really need the Fleet Footwork, then I take Press the Attack. This also is good if your enemy has a lot of squishy ranged champions where you won't even be able to proc a Conqueror completely, so Press the Attack also is a thing, but only into melee, easy melee matchups. Hard melee matchups, Fleet, easy ranged matchups, Press the Attack, hard ranged matchups, Fleet Footwork, and every melee matchup, Conqueror. Now let's talk about the resolve. Grasp is the only thing there. Only Grasp. I take this page into Jax, sometimes into Aurelia, but Aurelia I think Conqueror is better. Into hard matchups like Akali, into Poppy, into Renekton. So, for example, against Jax, I need the sustain more than I need the Conqueror, because he's very squishy, I can damage him easily, but it's better to have the sustain than to have the Conqueror. So this is into semi-hard matchups, but only into melee, because into ranged you won't be able to proc it. So Renekton, Jax, Tryndamere, Riven, these matchups you want to take Grasp. And you always want to take Demolish here, and here again Bone Plating into melee, Second Wind, for example, into Akali. She's not really ranged, but she's also not really melee, so she's an assassin, something in between. I take Grasp for the sustain, because you can't really proc a Conqueror on Akali, it's hard. And then I take Second Wind to sustain her Q. I take Second Wind with Doran's Shield to sustain her Q. Even though she's melee, I take Second Wind. So you can choose between Second Wind and Bone Plating. And then again here, Revitalize, standard, but for example, last game I played with this page, I played against Renekton, and I had Bone Plating here, Unflinching here, because he has his stun and you can't really predict it, so you will get stunned at some point. So I went with Unflinching and Tenacity. But if they don't have hard CC, you want to take Revitalize. Here the same, Presence of Mind, my favorite rune. And normally, this is my normal Grasp rune page. But, yeah, into hard CC, Tenacity, if you want to go God Drinker, you can go Alacrity. You can also go Triumph if you want to buy Mana Immune, for example. And then again, attack speed, Adaptive Force Armor, or Magic Resistance, of course. And if you go Alacrity here, you can go Adaptive Force here. Yeah, that's it for the runes. That's everything you need to know. It's everything you will ever need. I didn't, in 2 years, took another rune page than I just talked about. So this is everything. I know it was a lot, but it's everything you need to know. And you're good to go with that. For the items you want to start with, Doran's Blade, Doran's Shield, or Corrupting Potion. Corrupting Potion is into very hard matchups. Doran's Shield is into ranged matchups. Doran's Blade is basic. This you want to combine with with Second Wind. And this, yeah, sometimes with Grasp, because Grasp you also take into harder matchups. Then, early options. This is optional. Of course, if you're against a lot of anti-heal. So if you need anti-heal, if you're against a lot of healing. So let's say the enemy top laner is Aurelia and the enemy jungler is Viego. You want to build Executioner Calling or Bramble Vest. And in this case, I like Bramble Vest more because it gives you armor. And also you have to think about, if you build Executioners, you will apply the grievous wounds on the target you will be attacking. But if you build Bramble Vest, you will apply the grievous wounds to the target which is attacking you. So if both are attacking you, Viego and Aurelia, this will apply grievous wounds to both. This only to the one you attack. This is an early option into really hard CC. I don't build this very often. If I build this, I build this a little later. For Mythic, my main all-beloved item is Stripebreaker. You also can go God Drinker and Divine Sunderer. My rule is Stripebreaker Basic. So my basic build is start Doran's Blade, Mythic Stripebreaker, let me just choose either Plated Steel Caps or Mercs, and then Essence Reaver into Ravenous Hydra. So Stripebreaker, Essence Reaver, Ravenous Hydra. Those are my main items I build in 90% of my games. Again, this you will build, and of course you want to go, so I go TP Flash in most cases. Sometimes I never go Ignite Flash, so I go TP Flash or TP Ignite. And I take Ignite into range, into matchups with a lot of healing, for example Aurelia. But you have to care then because you are very vulnerable for getting ganked. But of course, if you have Ignite, you don't have to get an early Executioners, and so you can a little bit play with all of that, okay? And yeah, Stripebreaker, you want to take, yeah, if you go TP and Ignite, you can go Stripebreaker, because then you don't need the Flash, because you have your Stripebreaker, you have your passive, you have your R, you have your E slow, you have your W slow, you have your Q dash, and you don't need Flash at all, because you will be able to chase him down pretty easy. Also, this is good into ranged matchups, if the enemy has a lot of ranged, but I build it every time almost. This is more into melee matchups, but I only build it very game dependent, so not very often, but I talked about this already earlier. So yeah, God Drinker or Divine Sunderer is into really harsh matchups where, so this is a 1v1 item, this is not a team fight item. A more team fighting item would be God Drinker, because you have the active where you want a lot of people around you. But the Divine Sunderer, it's good against Poppy, it's good against Malphite, it's good against Renekton, so into hard matchups where you need it to win the 1v1. But with this item you want to be split pushing more, since it doesn't really give you that much for the team fights. Okay? So I would say Stripebreaker basic. This depending on the game. sometimes. This only into very hard matchups. Then shoes, of course, plate steel caps if you need armor, mercs if you need magic resistance and the tenacity, and sometimes, but don't build this often, the boots of lucidity. I only build it when I'm very ahead, so where I'm not afraid of getting stunned or taking auto hits. So this is very special. Main items, as I said, Essence Reaver. If you build Essence Reaver, you won't have any mana problems at all. So I go Presence of Mind with the rune, so I have early mana, and then when I'm going into the late game and into split pushing phase, I have Essence Reaver ready, so I won't have any mana problems at all. And after that, I go Ravenous Hydra. Okay. This you can combine Titanic Hydra with Divine Thunderer. This is more 1v1 damage. This is more for team fights because you have the Omnivamp and you have a little bit different of an AoE damage. And also Hullbreaker, so let's say a very hardcore 1v1 split pushing build would be Divine Thunderer, Titanic Hydra, Hullbreaker. Hullbreaker is good all the time, you're split pushing more than you're team fighting, it's also good, but I think most cases Ravenous Hydra is better because it gives you the Omnivamp. And Hullbreaker is also good if your enemy has mixed damage. Let's say it's a Jax and he builds, what is it called? He builds, I don't have it here. He builds Wit's End. And then he will have magic damage and attack damage. And also his abilities deal magic damage. So Hullbreaker, very good against Jax, for example. Okay. Late game options. Death Stance, Sterak's Gauge, Guardian Angel. I would say basic. So I build Death Stance in most games. Death Stance is good for split pushing. Sterak's is better if you're team fighting a lot, because the shield is good for team fights, and Guardian Angel. So my most standard item build is Stripe Breaker, Boots, Essence Reaver, Ravenous Hydra, Death Stance, Guardian Angel. Okay? Most basic build. If I teamfight more, I will build Sterak's. Hard matchups, as I said. Gore Drinker, Divine Thunderer, Titanic Hydra. If you're split pushing a lot, Hullbreaker. If you build early Executioners, or even if you just build it late, you can go into Chemtank, Chainsword. And yeah, that's good. It's a very cheap item. Yeah, if you need anti-heal, if your enemy have a lot of healing, let's say they are Swain, Vladimir, Irelia, Viego, you wanna have anti-heal. This, if the same thing, but more passively, if you build the Bramble West early, or if you're just into a lot of AD and healing, Thornmail is a good option. This is your best magic resistant item, Spirit Visage, because it increases all healing and shielding effects on you by 25%, so it works with your vitals, it works with your healing. Very good. I like to build this into as a fourth item into magic resistance, into magic damage. Serpent's Fang is very good against Sterak's Gauge and against Immortal Shield Bows. So if your enemies have a lot of Immortal Shield Bows or Sterak Gauges or heals and shields in general, Serpent's Fang is really good because it yeah, it works against shields. So very good. I built it a lot in the last time because a lot of people are abusing Immortal Shield Bow right now. I mean, they nerfed it today, but anyways, it's good. This or this if you want the Quicksilver, if you build it earlier, or if you just need it in the late game. This is more defensively, so the Silver Mordon. This is more aggressive. Mercurial Scimitar. Also note that this gives you, it removes all crowd control debuffs excluding Airborne, and you gain 40% tenacity and 40% slow resistance for 50 seconds. This gives you the same effect, but you gain movement speed for 1 second. So it's dependent on the game. Also Wit's End, a good item, but it's I don't build it often. They also nerfed it. But it's good if the enemy builds armor, I mean you have 2 damage anyway, but if the enemy builds armor and they have a lot of magic damage, you can go Wit's End because it gives you magic resistance against the magic damage, but also your auto attacks will apply magic damage on hit, so also your Q because it's applying on his effects, and you grant 20 move speeds for 2 seconds, so it's a good pick, but I don't build it too often. Don't build these items. Don't go Trinity Force, it's bad. Don't go Blade of the Rune King, it's bad. Don't go more of More Mortis, it's bad. I won't go into that right now because the video will be long enough already. If you need lifesteal, you want to go Ravenous Hydra or Gore Drinker or Legend Bloodline in the runes. If you I don't want to talk about this, you just don't need it, okay? And if you need the shield, you want to go Sterak's Gauge because it gives you the lifeline shield. And if you want to build magic resistance, you want to go for Spirit Visage or Wizard. Don't build these 3 items, they are not good. Just don't do it, it's not worth it, okay? Yeah, that's it for the items. The combos, I actually already have a video on it where I mention all the combos there are, all the combos I know, all the combos I looked up on the internet, so everything I found, everything you need to know is packed into this video. I will try to link it into the video. If I can't do it for any reason, just go to my channel, look up Fiora combos, you will find the video, it's there, it's everything you need to know, so I won't talk about the combos right now, okay? Yeah, then let's go into the matchups and to the early and late game. So we will fast forward this. The matchups, I already talked about it in the runes, in the items. In ranged matchups, you want the first 3 waves, so you don't touch the wave at all, you just stay back. If you have fleet, you can last it a little bit and you will heal back something from your second wind and your D shield, but you just want the enemy to push into you, so you will stay back, just catch the XP and want him to push all the way to your tower. You want to stay as healthy as possible. If you're here and the enemy is here farming the minions and you're here and the wave crashes, you can go. So you can go on the enemy, let's say he is like overextending here and the battle is, let's say, on your side, so we'll reset it. And then what I do a lot is I will just jump on him like this, parry him, chase him down, slow him with my E, maybe with my Q, and you will, in most cases, just kill your enemy. You just can't take too much damage before you're at your tower, because otherwise they will just outdamage you. But if you stay as healthy as possible, you can do that, and this is the strategy into every ranged matchups, okay? So I will just reset this very quickly. Now into melee. Into melee you want to contest the first blood. So you're here and you don't really want to touch the wave, you just wait for your enemy. If the enemy is touching the wave, then you're trying to hit the vitals of him, and also you want to hit the wave, because you need the first wave and one melee minion of the second wave to hit level 2. So if you hit the vital, you always want to go out of range, because the minions will attack you, or you just want to go into a bush really quickly, move out again, and you want to try to stay, to have one more minion all the time than your enemy. And then if you so for me, in most cases, at this point, at this point where I'm right now, I'm already ahead, so I already traded the enemy, and he's already lower than me. Then I hit level 2, I immediately skill my W, and I QW onto him, and this is also the part where if I have TP Ignite, I sometimes already grab the kill, because I Ignite him, Q him, he flashes away, dies anyways. Okay, so this is what you want to do. Let's say he survives it. Then you just want to push the third wave, so the cannon wave, really fast. Of course, try not to get ganked. If the enemy start a bot lane, put a ward somewhere here. Also, if they have a Lee Sin and they start a top lane or a Shaco, they can gank you. Just try to have a look at it. And you want to crash the third wave completely and take a cheater recall, okay? Then you want to buy a longsword and health potion, for example, or control ward. You also can grab cloth armor, something you will need, so you don't want to build cloth armor into a Teemo, of course, but for example into a Poppy it would make sense, but most likely on the first recall I take a longsword and a health potion. Then you go back to lane, you have an item advantage, he is pushing into you, you let it push to you, you grab the CS and then you play the lane from there on, okay? If the melee enemy at the first wave is pushing into you because you traded him, so he traded you and you are lower HP than him, then you want to back up. It's the same thing with the range. You don't want to grab CS, you just want to stay in range and let the wave crash. Then you can think about chasing him down. If not, you just want to last it and play the lane from there on, okay? Yeah, and in the laning phase, of course, you always want to track the enemy jungler, where you want to ward is this, so really the furthest point down into the river, and also the tribush. But here on the corner, because it could be that there is already someone inside and you don't want to be going in like this, because then he already can jump on you. Okay, I put pinks most likely there, but a little bit more up so I can defend it. And yeah, stealth wards, normal yellow wards into this push, okay? Sometimes if the enemy is pushing into me and I'm afraid that the jungler is cheesing me in this push, I put a ward there, okay? And yeah, you just play the lane, you play proper offense, defense. If you don't know how this goes, you can also find a video for that in my channel. You want to play proper offense, defense, and all the time you're in offense, you want to trade the enemy, and most likely if you play correctly, you will win. If the enemy has CC, of course, play around that and always try to parry the CC, and every time you parry a CC, for example, every time I parry the Jack's E, he's dead. It's like that. But then also the other way around, if you don't parry it, you're dead. So it's hard, be a little bit careful. And yeah, also try to hit the W, because sometimes the enemy will dodge it, or sometimes you just can't hit it. So try to hit that. Even the attack speed and the movement speed slow is 50% for 2 seconds. It's big, so you just want to hit it, okay? Yeah, that's the early, and you actually just want to stay even. You don't need a big lead. If you're a little bit behind, if you're 0-1, it's still okay. If you're 1-0, it's of course better, but you want to stay even. If you go into the mid to late game, so if you go into the late game with playing the lane even, you are fine, you are perfect, you're good. That's everything you want, because you're scaling. Of course you have potential to grab some kills early, but you're still scaling. That's why Fiora is such a good champion for climbing. And yeah, the mid to late game, most likely you want to be split pushing. So split pushing means you want to make pressure on the opposite side of the map. So let's say the people are fighting bot, you want to pressure top. Let's say people are fighting top, you want to pressure bot. Most likely you want to play around the objectives like dragons, heralds, and baron. So if there is a dragon spawning, you want to be split pushing top. But you only want to do that if you have CP. If you're behind, you always want to be split pushing, because you will lose 5v5 fights anyways. Yeah. Always communicate with your team. So let's say dragon is spawning, so mountain dragon or the, oh my god, the fire dragon, infernal dragon is spawning in 30 seconds, and you're top. You ping your team the dragon and you ping your TP. You can also write I split top with TP. Then you're already looking for the ward where you can TP, or for the wave if there's no ward. And then you pressure top, and then you can pressure top but also pressure the objective at the same time. And this is the main mechanic. If you don't have TP, you want to play around the team. If you're a weak side, you want to play around the team. If you can't 1v1 the enemy top laner, you want to play with your team. So yeah, that's everything you need to know in first place. That's everything I want to give you in this video, because I don't want it to be too long. And yeah, I think that's enough for you to become a really good Fiora player. I like this champion. You can have so much skill on this champion. You can proc your R always faster. You can use a W always more efficient. You can QE always a little bit quicker or a little bit better. It's such a nice champion. And yeah, that's everything. I hope you got something out of this video. If you learned at least anything from this video, make sure to leave a thumbs up to support my channel. Comment down below, let me know what your ranking is, because it's really nice to know. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube, subscribe to my Twitch. I'm posting weekly content to help you guys to get the best out of Season 12 possible, so you climb the rank you always wanted and have fun at the game. So yeah, for today I'm tuning out. See you guys. Ciao.